All right, let's jump on over then to all right, let's go play baseball. On March 6th,
Not
a
anymore,
lifelong
inevitably.
on March 6th, a lifelong baseball team in New York decided to launch its plans to be a real soccer team by releasing renderings of a brand new soccer specific stadium called naming rights sponsor Stadium. I don't know if you got that joke.
I saw it.
All right, cool. You didn't laugh, so I was worried
I
that you
didn't
didn't know what
laugh.
I was talking. That's all
No,
right.
no, I knew what you were talking about.
You just don't have good sense of humor. But I'm gonna just pull back on those. That was my like entry New York City. Got to take digs at them. But we're here to share our thoughts, designs, location, implementation, all of it. Um, I'm gonna ask you what you think about it first, and then I'll jump in.
Seems very so here's my one and only thing that I my one and only thought on it is how accessible it is for everybody around it. So I know I briefly mentioned it to you. Um, we talked about you had mentioned the Long Island Railroad goes right to the stadium, and I think that's great. I think Long Island could be a really good like a fan population for them. You know, it's worked well for teams like the Mets and the Islanders. My biggest thing is it needs to be easy to travel to from New York City because that's where I think your biggest potential for fans is. And I think there's a lot of work to be done on winning over fans in the city. I think there are tons of soccer fans in the city. However, I don't think there's tons of MLS fans in the city. So that's where I see there's huge potential there for them. I mean, there's people that love the sport already. You just got to get them into the local team. But it's going to make that infinitely harder if there is not an easy way for them to get to the stadium. Like take the Islanders for example. Like that was a stadium that was just really tough to, if not like nearly impossible to get from the city to Nassau Coliseum unless you had a car. If that's going to be the case again here, which I saw in the article doesn't look like that's the case, but if that's the case, then people are just not going to come from the city. They don't have a car. They're not going to come out here unless there's a train that comes right to it. And the like the surrounding that they're looking at like around the stadium looks very promising in that regard, and I think that'll draw a lot of people from the city. They're going to really like the walkability of it. And it does look like this article from MLS, I believe it mentioned the 7 train somewhere. So if that's the case, that's the same thing as taking the 7 train out to City Field to watch the Mets. It'll probably
So,
be pretty like it'll probably be a pretty long commute, but having that as an option, I think will open the door for more people in the city. So I think it's promising, but I do want to see what happens when it actually opens.
so a little spoiler alert. It's right across the street from the City Field.
Oh yeah, I forgot it's kind of grouped together with them.
Yeah, that's why you're like, oh man, that's just like City Field. Yeah, yeah, it is. Well, and that's why I'm excited about it, right? And I'm giving this as a neutral. That's why I didn't bring my Red Bull scarves out today. I'm bringing it as a neutral point of view where it's going to be good for the league, right? It's LIRR out of the Port Washington line. It is the 7 train, which again, my knowledge of New York City transit isn't, uh, you know, like a native New York City or like yourself, but uh, I am not like super familiar. But to have multiple train lines that run through there is really nice. Um, and let's just forget about all that for a second. Like the design looks sick. Like I think it looks awesome. Our friends over at stlouissoccernews.com mentioned to us that during the game against St. Louis, New York City had officials out there looking at their stadium, taking notes about what they can, instill in their stadium. Which I love St. Louis's stadium. I think it's beautiful. So that's a really nice look. And we mentioned the location's solid. Um, it's at the old Shea Stadium stop, from my understanding. So anybody who used to take the train into Shea Stadium can now take the train into uh, a New York City game, which is like that is one of the biggest draws of, and I'm going to go to the better hockey team here of the New York Rangers, where their train stop is literally underneath the stadium. You get out, bang, there's Madison Square Garden, right? Same thing with the Knicks, right? So to have, like you mentioned, to have that there is really nice. the other thing I really like about it, and again, it's not so much stadium specific, but I like what it's going to bring to the community, right? There's a little note there, right? 2,500 affordable housing units, 650 student elementary school, a hotel, retail shops, tons of open park space. Like it's going to be great for the community too, which again, everything that you do in a rendering is going to be great for the community. What actually gets done, I don't know, but on paper they have the right idea. They're not just going to tear up a bunch of land and be like, "Yep, here's our stadium and deal with it." Right? They're going to give back to the community. They're going to try and revitalize the area they're going into. Awesome, absolutely love it. Um, but I do need to get your thoughts on the cube, a 7 foot tall front door, 7 story tall front door. Excuse me. To New York City's first ever soccer specific stadium, according to MLSsoccer.com. Just give it to me all. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it just looks like a soccer stadium. I mean, I'd feel like I'd have to be there in person to kind of get the full scope of things. And I mean, it looks like any, I don't know. I don't want to be like too much, I don't want to sound like too much of a Debbie Downer, but just looking at the aerial view picture of it, like it just looks like a new soccer stadium. It looks like a lot of the new soccer stadiums that are coming out. It looks nice. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think like it's some magical revelation that is like changing the way that teams are building stadiums. But I'm totally gonna go back off topic to what we were talking about before, uh,
Okay,
because
Mister, I don't want to waffle anymore.
because you mentioned that the stadium is in the same location as City Field, so that's deep Queens, just to give you some perspective. Like very deep Queens. That is the second to last stop on the 7 train. You have to go through like 10 plus other stops on the 7 line before you get there. I can't tell you how many times train lines are like diverted, delayed, or like completely not running on the weekends, which is when NYCFC is going to play. I'm telling you, that's going to have an effect on people from the city going to watch games. And you're going to see it the same way I think you're going to see the baseball fandoms in New York City, where I looked up a Marist poll. Marist did a little research on this in April 2022, where 43% of the, I don't know what population in the city they were talking to, but 43% said they were Yankees fans, 21% said they were Mets fans. That to me says it's much easier for us to, I think there's a part of that that's cultural, right? Like I think the Yankee culture is much more spread in New York City. But I also think a part of that is it's much easier for people in the city to go see the Yankees than it is for them to go see the Mets. In which case they're like, all right, well, I'm gonna go be a fan of the team that I can actually go see play. So I know it's probably not super realistic that they were going to be able to build a stadium in Manhattan. There's just not room for it. Not a similar situation to like what the Knicks or the Rangers get. But I do think the location is going to not bring in as many New York City people as I would hope they could bring in, because I think that's a prime market for them, because Red Bull Stadium is even worse. Like that's an even worse
You
location to bring in
never
New York
even
City
been
people.
there. How do you know?
I have taken the train by it.
Oh, so yeah. You know what's funny is actually I've flown past Washington State. Have I told you it's awful? Because I saw it from a plane. Bum. Dare you disrespect the nicest stadium in MLS? Um,
Sure, something like that.
I disagree with your thoughts on the kind of like it's whatever. I think it looks sick. Like so the description was super interesting to me where they were trying to make it unique, right? You either have the rectangle or you have the bowl, right? Is the way they described it. And this is kind of like a what's great. Now I got to think back to geometry.
Oh God.
It's like a the corners are cut off on two of the sides. They're not, it's not like pointed anymore. It's kind of fitting it. Well, it's interesting because it's fitting in between all of these New York City roads, right? From there you get this giant U, right? It's easily the most unique entrance in all of major sports. Like I can't think, and again, my knowledge of other sports leagues are not super up there, but like walking through a giant illuminated 7-story tall cube that's got LED screens all over the place, 11,000 square feet, that's got all of your, hype videos and your game day graphics, and, you know, just it feels really cool. And in sticking to their roots, they described it as being a unique stadium experience, like their baseball brothers Wrigley Field or Fenway. They had to use baseball stadium to describe it, which I think
There's
is
no way they describe their stadium to Wrigley Field.
100. I will. Great. Now I got to send you the link. Awesome.
I'm
So
not
they.
doubting you. I'm just saying one of those is
Oh,
an
I thought
absolute
I thought you were
historic
doubting.
stadium. The other one doesn't even exist yet.
I thought you were no. So they were describing it as in terms of like uniqueness, right? You got unique sight lines, and it's just different, which
The
is
uniqueness is the doorway that gets into the stadium.
you don't appreciate modern
I
architecture.
don't. I think like that's gonna be cool for like the first maybe couple times you go there, and then you're gonna just be like, okay, it's the cube. Like I would prefer that like the environment within the stadium is really great. Like they built it so that it's like, there's really cool stalls and stuff that you can go to, and it's super easy to get to your seats and all that. And it's like a really they've built it so that like the supporter section area is like really visible and it's easy like on the acoustics so you can hear them really loud. Like that's what I would rather than just a giant entrance to the stadium.
What break in the timeline reality did we hit where I have to defend New York City more than you
I
do?
love this reality.
Where did we go wrong? Because something's going wrong here. Here's the deal. End of the day, 25,000 seat capacity is a perfect size, right? They get that much at their games now, so they're gonna sell out. They're gonna have a packed stadium again, relative to if the trains are running or what have you. I think you because it's so easy to get from it's easier to get from Long Island, right? The PW line. That to me opens up a world of possibility of, and I hate to put it this way, but the Red Bull fans who, and I use that in quotes, like the people who will watch the games and they'll watch it from time to time, but they're not really invested like others are. They might now be like, oh, you know what? It's easy to just jump on a train, take it, insert number of stops here, pop off and go watch a game, right? That's easy. Like you just mentioned, it's easier to be a Yankees fan than a Mets fan in the city. It's easier to be a City fan than a Red Bull fan on Long Island,
Yeah, totally fair point.
right?
I
So
think
so
they're I
while
think that might be the demographic they're going for.
well, and that's what I mean. While you have that New York City kind of might be harder to get to, which it won't always be harder to get to because you do have lines that run in whether they're canceled or not. But the Long Island demographic now gets brought into this, which I think will be really exciting as well. But um, new soccer specific stadiums, regardless of which baseball teams they're replacing, are popping up all over the league, and that's always a good sign, right? It's a sign of the growth. It's a sign of the steps forward. Um, New York City have put this off for a long time now, much to the chagrin of many MLS fans and their own supporters as well. But if the real thing is anything like the design, I think they've knocked it out of the park. It's in a good location. It's got easy access. It's not really a copy and paste of other stadiums before it, even though Connor has that uh, opinion. But as we know,
That's
Connor's
not
opinions
my
are
opinion.
wrong.
You're putting words into my mouth. I didn't say it's
Um,
not unique. I just said I think the
you said
the
you don't
giant
care.
door entrance will just
You
kind
said
of
you
like
don't care. That's what you said.
it's like you remember when the Mets added City Field and they had the Jackie Robinson Rotunda. I don't know why I'm saying it in the
Yeah,
past tense. Like they don't still
like
have
they
it.
don't have it now.
Yeah, like that was super cool at the start, but like the fifth time I've been to City Field, I'm not like in shock and awe every time I walk through the rotunda. Like at this point, I just walk right through it and go to the seats. Like it's just kind of it was cool at first, but I just don't think it should be the selling point of the stadium.
Well, I think it's different because it's easily changeable. And I've been to City Field like twice, so I can't be certain about it. But um, like being an LED screen, right? You can put anything you want on there within legal, restrictions.
All
Um,
fun and games till it gets hacked.
right, yeah.
Emil Forsberg
uh,
ends up on there.
listen, like no pun intended, this is an absolute home run for the club and the league, right? It is. I think it's great for the growth. Um, they and again, we'll take this back the other way. They finally were able to kick the you don't have your own stadium thing, which is a massive win in their book personally. Um, now they just need to be like half decent as a football team and not get walked off at the end of every game, right? All right, that's enough.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
getting all of these baseball references in now because I'm not going to be able to in a few years. Now, groundbreaking or finished product supposed to be 2027. 3 years is still a long time for a lot of things to go wrong. So I'm not like, oh my God, it's here, but I sure do hope they get it across the
Yeah, I think oh, something's leaking in my shower. Um
line. Weird.
all that being so I know I've sounded really critical of it the entire time, but I am genuinely happy that they have their own stadium now and they have a place to call home and stop moving around and being in these awful looking baseball stadiums. And I don't mean that as a knock on the baseball stadiums. It's just not meant for soccer. But I am happy for them. It does look like it'll be a cool stadium. I just don't think I'm in as love with the cube concept as you are. But at the end of the day, it's great for the league and it's great for the team that they found a place that they can finally call home.
Yeah, like it's a. I was gonna say something. Oh, the baseball part. Yeah, I watched a USL game this afternoon because there was no MLS on. It was in New Mexico, and they were playing at a baseball stadium, and it's the same. It actually was, in my opinion, the worst view of the baseball stadium because they had the entire infield in the background, so they were shooting it from the other side that New York City usually does, and I was like, it's just not meant for soccer, right? Like it's not bad. Like they had a great crowd, people were there supporting them. It was awesome. It's just not meant for soccer, and we're spending so much. I'm glad they're finally getting it done because it's not meant to be there. So